Negreanu has pocket kings.
Raises?
Queen high.
Queen high?
He opens the pot to $1,200, a classic early position flex that targets the blinds and sets up a pot he can steer in position. Hellmuth, smooth, calls, choosing pot control and range protection over a thin 3-bet. Katchalov comes along as well with ace-9, content to realize in position and take a multi-way flop against two ranges that can play face-up on ace-high textures. Katchalov checks the ace-high flop, protecting a top-pair hand with a middling kicker and letting the action declare itself. Negreanu checks behind. Pocket kings hate attacking into two players on an ace board, and the slowdown keeps weaker hands and bluffs alive while controlling the pot. Hellmuth takes the invitation and fires $1,200, a small stab meant to fold out nothing hands and price set against exactly these cautious checks. Katchalov calls, signaling he is not afraid of a little heat with top pair. Negreanu overcalls, a cagey line that keeps both ranges uncapped and disguises the true strength of kings by wearing the same hoodie as ace-X.
You too, Daniel?
Yeah.
My God.
You didn't expect two calls, right?
No,
Just one.
I was expecting one call.
No.
All three check the turn after the 8 rolls off. That card changes little. Katchalov sees no need to inflate with his kicker problem. Hellmuth's one-and-done bluff correctly shuts down into two sticky ranges, and Negreanu continues the sandbag, preserving the option to spring value or bluff catch on rivered scare cards. The river drops the king of clubs and the trap wakes up. Katchalov leads $4,200, thin value that hopes to get paid by worse aces and denies a free showdown to stubborn pairs. Negreanu answers with a raise to $14,200, selling a story consistent with a slow-played monster or a patient ace that improved, and crucially targeting the very hand Katchalov is value betting.
I think Phil's Hollywooding a bit here since he bet out on the flop.
Hellmuth gets out of the way, his earlier poke having run its course. Faced with a credible, disciplined raise from a player who never overbets his bluffs, Katchalov has to reassess whether ace-9 is really a cash-out hand.
And Eugene folds.
I had at least that.
Negreanu is looking down on Jack-9 suited. He opens to $3,000 on the button, a classic small ball steal that also invites dominated jacks and queens to continue. Brunson flat calls in the small blind with Queen-Jack suited, a smooth defend that keeps Negreanu's range wide and retains post-flop maneuverability.
Well, there's a lot of money out there, baby. A lot of money out there.
Go and get you some.
Troy Wiggins completes in the big blind with pocket 4s for set value, and the stage is set. Brunson, holding top pair with a strong kicker, declines to bet into two players on a coordinated texture because checking keeps Negreanu's bluffs alive and avoids building a pot where he could be outkicked or check raised by club draws. The paired board reduces semi-bluffs, and Doyle seizes the lead for $8,000. From his seat, Negreanu's flop check capped him toward medium strength and draws, so Doyle's stab is designed to extract from worse jacks and to tax the clubs and queen-10 type gutters. Negreanu calls rather than raise. The flat keeps the pot manageable against a range that still contains ace-jack or king-jack, keeps Doyle's bluffs and thin value hands firing, and leverages position to make the final decision with maximum information. This river is a sneaky upgrade for Negreanu to 2-pair, while a large chunk of Doyle's range remains 1 pair of jacks. Doyle checks, signaling showdown mode rather than a polarized line. Negreanu now turns the knobs. His hand cleanly targets Queen-Jack and King-Jack, while very rarely running into a slow-played full house on this sequence.
Biggest hand I've had.
Hellmuth is looking down on 9-7 offsuit. He limps, which caps his range and invites someone to attack the dead money. Minieri obliges with an isolation raise using a suited king, a great candidate because it has blockers, plays well post-flop, and pushes the button on everyone who limped. Locke and Martinez come along, which pulls the SPR up and widens continuing ranges.
I get unstuck. I get off the tilt juice.
Hard to get off that tilt teat.
Hellmuth overcalls rather than 3-betting, a choice that keeps the pot manageable, preserves positional leverage against the razor, and allows weaker holdings to realize without facing a big pre-flop decision. This texture is excellent for the pre-flop aggressor. As the only player who routinely shows up with strong King X after raising, Minieri can c-bet profitably. The small sizing pressures ace high, punishes underpairs, and denies equity to random backdoors while risking little against slow-played traps. Hellmuth check calls instead of raising. That keeps bluffs firing, prevents the pot from ballooning versus the portion of Minieri's range that will not fold, and sets up a decision tree where Hellmuth can choose which turns to accelerate on. Multi-way callers have folded, so we are quickly moving toward a heads-up range battle that favors the in-position player's initiative and the out-of-position player's ability to trap. The second king super polarizes things. From Minieri's seat, this is a green light to barrel because his range contains far more king X than Hellmuth's limp call range. The bet around $5,300 targets exactly the hands that called once and hate life now, medium pairs and stubborn ace high, and it continues to build a pot in case he is ahead. Hellmuth's second check call is strategic. Raising isolates him against very strong holdings and folds out hands that might bluff again. Calling keeps his range wider, invites another polarized river bet, and protects the times he is bluff catching with decent showdown value. From a range math perspective, once the king pairs, the pre-flop raiser's value density increases, which means the out-of-position player should avoid thin raises and lean into induce lines. Nothing material completes, so Minieri retains a nut advantage and chooses a large polar bet of $17,200. That sizing asks a capped range to overdefend, and it puts maximum pressure on one-pair type catchers that arrived here by calling twice.
Oh, man.
Hellmuth's final check call makes sense within that framework. He beats all the natural stabs that gave up drawing equity on the turn.
It's just unreal what happens to me at this place. I mean, I'm just so sick of it, you know? I mean,
I had the best on the chart, I had the best hand on the river.
What the is going on in this place? They do me
What the is going on
versus
the river? How
queens,
do you
I
call it? You
flop
always think a
trips.
bluff, I only wait for the nuts.
Vanessa is looking down on ace-jack offsuit. Pre-flop is a quiet trap that Vanessa sets on purpose. Antonio opens the button light, which Vanessa flat calls from the small blind, and Shaq completes. By not 3-betting, Vanessa keeps both dominated aces and splashy suited connectors in. Multi-way, in position on Antonio and with Shaq behind, ace-jack plays beautifully. She wants exactly this kind of pot. That's top pair, top kicker for Vanessa on a very wet texture. Instead of checking to the raiser and risking a free card or a check-through 3-way, she leads $165K. It's a protection lead that charges every draw and worse jack. Shaq's hand is the textbook, raise the donk, candidate, pair plus clubs plus straight equity. He bumps it to $400K, telling a story of strength while leaning on fold equity plus a ton of ways to improve. Vanessa just calls. No reason to blow up the pot against a range that includes bluffs and dominated value. And if she 3-bets, she mostly isolates the strongest stuff or gets shoved on by draws with tons of equity. Flat keeps the leash tight. Turn pairs the board. That card quietly helps Vanessa more than Shaq. Sets are less likely now. Her jack stays very live, and a bunch of Shaq's pair-based value gets neutered. He still has all the draws, though.
All in.
And Shaq shoves!
I call.
Vanessa calls! It's a 10!
That was not supposed to happen.
Tom Dwan is looking down on pocket 7s, but he's up against Doug Polk, who's raised to $3,000 with 5-4 suited. 99% of players would just fold with Doug Polk's cards here, but at a cash game of these stakes, the players are mostly playing the players, not the cards. It's a semi-bluff. He's hoping he can steal the pot uncontested.
Woo, 14.
Tom Dwan raises more than 2 times to pot. This is a classic squeeze spot, punishing Doug Polk's wide cutoff open by denying him the cheap positional advantage and forcing him to commit big if he wants to dance. Doug Polk definitely knows he's a big underdog against a small blind 3-bet range. The call here is less about hand strength and more about trying to outplay Tom Dwan post-flop, using position to create fold equity.
Doug Polk opening the suited connector in the cutoff. Tom Dwan puts in the 3-bet from the small blind and flops middle sets. 31,000 in the middle.
In 3-bet pots, the pre-flop aggressor usually controls the story, and this board gives Tom all the credibility in the world. Doug's range has a lot of air here, so Tom can lean into that advantage and apply maximum pressure, knowing position alone won't save Doug if the bets start piling up.
Doug Polk is going to float.
I don't know why, but I thought Warren just said all in for a second, and I was like, whoa.
Needs running cards to make a hand.
The 6 of hearts on the turn gives Doug Polk an open-ended straight draw, and knowing his maniac style of playing, it could cost him a lot of money.
could win on the river with an 8 or a 3.
Tilt software. Let's get this shit going.
This should be. Yeah.
Another half pot bet.
115.
And Doug's gonna raise.
By inflating the pot here, Doug Polk is putting maximum pressure on Dwan's range and setting up the possibility to shove the river whether he hits or not.
I call.
Interesting.
Battling.
Tom Dwan knows Doug loves bluffing, so he checks to trap him.
420.
420.
What are we doing?
You win.
I know I win, probably.
Uh-oh.
Daniel Negreanu is looking down at 6-5 offsuit, but he's up against his nemesis of 20 years, Phil Ivey, who's holding King Jack suited. Ivey raises to 75,000. Most players would probably fold in Daniel's spot.
No choice. Can't fold it. Gotta see a flop in the big blind.
There's the call. So it's Daniel versus Phil.
Ivey is 64% favorite for now, but the flop comes 8-6-6 and Negreanu hits trips.
I don't see Phil falling for this.
Phil checks too. I don't know how, but he can somehow feel Daniel is strong here.
A king on the turn.
Now I see him falling for it a little.
Negreanu wants Phil second-guessing every assumption. Wants him trapped between is he bluffing and is he setting me up? What looks like hesitation is actually misdirection. This is less about cards, more about control.
Daniel leads. Phil now with top pair.
Even if you think Daniel has a 6, you can't just go folding top pair.
Negreanu's sizing here leaves Ivey about 3.5 to 1 on a call. And with top pair, that's usually a no-brainer. But what Daniel's really doing here is laying the groundwork for the river. He's planting the seed that says, if you call now, you're going to have to call big later. This is psychological compounding. Pressure applied in stages. Daniel is hoping that Phil did indeed hit that king on the turn, and he's going to try to make him sweat like a maniac.
He calls. The river is a jack.
Wow, Daniel is running better than Prefontaine.
Daniel value bets his trips. Phil forced to call with top 2.
Nope.
So obvious you have a 6. Got 350.
Trip 6s. Phil shows King Jack for top 2. Daniel's trip 6s takes 5.
Good call, good call. Good thing you didn't raise. That was smart. You know what you're doing.
Daniel Negreanu looks down to King 10 offsuit, a hand with decent equity in a 4-way pot. Against him is Elizabeth Houston, who opens to a Queen Jack offsuit. Let's see who will the poker gods bless this time.
See that? Cheap flop.
Reynolds folds.
Also makes it easier to call this 3-bet from Tony G.
He raises to 2,000. Queen Jack for the cannon. She calls out of position. So does Daniel.
And like that, Williams built himself his own little pot odds.
He calls too. 4-person party to the flop.
The flop comes 8 Queen Jack Rainbow, which is perfect for Houston. She is looking at top 2 pair with no danger of a flush and only a potential straight or a pocket pair being in her way. Her odds look great, but I think she should have bet harder before Negreanu had a chance to see more of the community cards.
I fold.
Thank you, William.
With the bet sizing being insufficient, even Tony G with his mid pair of jacks that have 2% equity will make the call. The turn delivers the 4 of spades. Things couldn't have been better for Houston. Pocket 4s would have probably folded, same as the pocket 6s from earlier, but she is still afraid of the flush and straight draw. That's why she fires a bet for a bit over half the pot, which I think will be yet again not enough to get Negreanu off his hand.
Daniel's checking out her stack, knowing she probably has something strong enough to lose it all if he does make the nuts.
Negreanu casually calls her $15,000 bet as predicted. But at least Tony G and his adventuristic jacks are gone. Now let's see what the turn will bring for Negreanu. And it is the ace. What a cooler this will be at the end.
That's Daniel's gin card, and this could get ugly for the cannon. I expect her to bet here.
Now she checks.
Somehow she knew to slow down. Daniel's got the nuts. Let's see how much he thinks she'll pay off.
50.
If Elizabeth has watched the show at all, she would know Daniel doesn't bluff raise the river very often. No one does.
If Elizabeth makes this call, she'll have less than 30,000 remaining in her stack.
Call.
Ouch.
She sees it.
Damn it.
Mayhem kicks things off with pocket 3s. He raises to $400, but Nick and Francisco call with pocket nines and king-queen suited.
Thumbs up yet? Please do so.
Wow. Whoa!
Ludacris also calls with pocket deuces. This hand is gonna be epic. Mike X looks at 5-4 offsuit. Not the best hand, but in a 5-way pot, I think it deserves to see a flop.
YouTube. Uh-oh, I'll shut the hell up here. This is set over set against straight, against overpair. Dear Lord.
Mayhem checks with his set of threes. Definitely not the most optimal play in a 5-way pot. Betting big and trying to scare away draws would have been the better play here.
Huge one if the board does not pair. Nick bets his overpair. Here comes a raise. Mike X sitting there with the nuts.
He's tanking, probably deciding how to get value without scaring everyone off. He doesn't want to make it obvious he's sitting pretty, but he also wants to get paid. It's a tricky balance. Does he slow play it or fire to build the pot? Tough call in this high-stakes moment.
And Mike, what a cooler flop this is. Look at Luda.
Whoa.
He's trying to figure out what the hell Mike could have here.
Mayhem moves all in with his set of threes. He's probably thinking he surely wins this one. But with 2 sets already on the board, it's just one of those nasty spots where the cards align against him. Can't win them all. And this hand's a brutal reminder of that.
12, 13, 15.
Puts the call in.
Mike's got the straight and he knows he's ahead. But this much action, 2 big raises in front of him, that's the kind of thing that makes even the nuts feel sketchy. He's sitting there doing mental gymnastics while trying not to look too interested.
I'm all in.
He's going to send it all in.
I guess I already decided. Fuck me. All right, one time, call.
Mayhem needs a 6, a 3, or running 7s. 7, 6, or 3 for Mayhem. Luda needs a 2. Otherwise, Mike's going to win an 89K pot.
Oh my God. Wow. No, but Chris runs a massive side pot.
Sorry, Mike.
Wow.
Oh, wow, you called the 6. That's so sick.
Wow, that's so gross.
Luda ends up winning in this hand.
Needed that. Wow.